So welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. My name is Sarah Ivanhoe and I'm the new yoga director for USC. This is our first time ever creating a position of a yoga director. And this is a new role for me, but I have been with USC now for about a year and a half, teaching through the mindfulness program, teaching this sleep class. And so this is it's my truly favorite class that I teach. And as we are kind of kicking off here, just so you know, I also have an eye towards, I keep having people pop into my waiting room and I keep letting them roll in. So if I seem a little distracted, I'm kind of trying to do two roles here. But I invite you all to please turn your cameras on so I can see you and so you can sort of see each other for this first part of class. Part of, well, you know what, I want to make sure. Okay, now we're recording. Part of what I love about the sleep class is the sense of community that we get and a sense of meeting other people. I am teaching this sleep class because I myself have struggled with sleep disorder, with severe insomnia since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And as I've gone on my journey of life, I found that it seems like there's like a support group for almost everything in life except for people who have sleep disorders. And for those of us that struggle with sleep disorders, we don't even have our normal support system because we're having that struggle usually in the middle of the night. We can't reach over and grab our partner because our partner's sleeping. We can't, call up our best friend and say, hey, I'm having trouble sleeping because everybody's sleeping. So part of what's wonderful about doing this class together and being able to see each other and talk to each other is like, oh, there are other people who are really struggling with sleep as well. And it's just kind of nice. The struggle for sleep are so isolating. It's just nice to know that we're not alone. So as I said, I started having trouble sleeping when it's my very first memories. And yes, okay, good. Story of my life. So already I got somebody feeling me on this one. And so I was lucky enough to start the practice of what at the time they told me was called biofeedback practice, which I now have learned has its roots in an ancient practice called Yoga Nidra. And Yoga Nidra is a reclined, guided relaxation practice where your eyes are closed, you're lying down, and you're actually doing sort of a visualization. And the practice of Yoga Nidra is thousands of years old. It's an ancient meditation practice, but I sort of stumbled upon it as a child. And I started to have these kind of exalted states of consciousness, and which got me interested in more meditation and more yoga. I started doing physical yoga when I was 14 and really just dove into yoga and meditation and Ayurveda and different modalities of healing and consciousness, and has really been studying them for a lifetime. So I've now been teaching yoga and meditation for this is actually next month, October, is my 25-year teaching anniversary. So a long time. And I've been teaching these sleep workshops, these sleep classes for about 15 of those years. I started teaching, very active physical yoga. And then I started to really realize that what was important to me was all of the things that I had learned about yoga for sleep, where some yoga practices actually really are meant to wake you up and energize you for the day. And if you do those at the wrong time, they could keep you awake at night. So I've almost used myself as a guinea pig to see which yoga, meditation, breathing practices really work for sleep. And then I've also done just a little bit of a study of how sleep works and have found some of the aspects of that interesting. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a sleep scientist. I'm not a neuroscientist, and I can't speak as a scientist would, but I will be sharing with you a few ideas about how sleep works mostly because I find it fascinating. And then when I'm struggling with sleep, for me, it gives me a little bit more sort of knowledge and education of what I know I'm working with. So what I'm going to do is just sort of jump into a little bit of an overview of how the class is going to work, and dive into a little bit of information about sleep, and then we'll do some practices. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen with all of you. Let's see how this works. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you just give me a thumbs up if you guys can see this okay? Okay, great, wonderful. Okay, so this is us. Welcome to Mindful USC Sleep Class. Here we are, it's September. Can you guys believe it's September already? Like what? I feel like we just went into quarantine and I've just been in a complete time warp ever since. So here we go. We gotta step into it. I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of an overview of how these weeks are gonna go. So we're obviously right now in week 1. We're going to learn a little bit about how sleep works and of course how it doesn't work. Week 2 will be, we'll go over some sleep disorders and give you guys some sleep hygiene tips. Week 3, you'll learn about REM sleep and the different sort of cycle of sleep. Week 4, we're going to be learning about a little bit of how sleep is perceived through Eastern philosophy, Om, and the different stages of sleep consciousness, which is just sort of a fun and juicy share. I love that week. And then my hope is that you will come away with on sleep on week 5, that throughout what we learn throughout this course, you'll be able to leave here with a personal sleep strategy. I want to just pause to explain that for a moment. My dad's a doctor, and the way he sort of explained insomnia to me is, and again, different, we all have different sleep disorders. We'll be learning about that. But sleep disorders are not, it's not one thing. Sleep disorders are what he calls sort of a symptom cluster, meaning there are many different symptoms and things that could be causing it. So for instance, if a patient has chest pain, right? There could be many reasons why a patient has chest pain. They might be having a heart attack. They might be having indigestion. They might have a broken rib. They might have so many different things might cause pain in the chest. You can't treat that chest pain until you actually know what it is that's causing it. You need to know what the individual problem is. And then there are always a variety of things that can treat that. So sleep is a vast issue, and everybody here, I bet if everybody explained what their challenge with sleep was, I bet that everybody's challenge with sleep is slightly unique. So I'm not going to be able to give you one magical cure or pill or solution to what's going to fix your sleep. The way this class will work is I'm going to lay out the variety of different challenges and problems, and then I'm going to lay out a variety of different sleep hygiene techniques that you can abide by, but then also breathing, yoga, relaxation techniques that might help you to wind down. And it's going to be up to you to find like, oh, well, my challenge is here, so I need to abide by, this sleep hygiene technique. Oh, this is my challenge, so I need to turn off my blue light and do this breathing technique to sleep, or something like this. Or no, actually I have, sleep apnea, so I need to do this with the breathing, or I have to make sure that I cut down on my sugar, or something like this. So it's complex and vast, and where I do work with people individually quite a bit, because this is a class of, now we've got 59 people here. My hope is that all I can do is kind of put out as much information as I can, but it's going to be up to you to really listen for what, oh, that really applies to me, or you know what, that's not me at all. She's talking to somebody else.
There's something that has to be done about that, because he does need to, there's something that has to be done about that, because he does
I
need to
think
shower.
somebody needs to, how do we get them to mute? Hi. I don't know how to look at everybody's screen with my screen shared. Can everybody just go ahead and please take a quick peek at your, oh, I think they muted themselves. Yeah, no problem. These are the Zoom adventures, right?
It says Jeanette's X.
Let's see. Okay. Jeanette X. I think I got her muted. Okay, wonderful. Hey, thank you guys for working as a team with all of that. Boy, have we had some wild Zoom adventures in these last 6 months, huh? It's just been, I mean, I've seen some things I never thought I'd see. Okay, at least I learned to put my dog in the other room. Okay, so let's get back to the screen share. No. Let's see. Here we go. Thanks for your patience. That's not it.
Whatever that was you had up, Sarah, I hope you buy it. You deserve it.
Right, doesn't that look so cute? Okay, let's try this one more time. Thanks, guys. This is what happens when you try to do too many things at once. Okay. Now, let's go back here. Yes, it was Free People. You guys like Free People? It's like my favorite. Just obsessed with Free People. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, this is a lively group, I can already tell. Okay, we got it. Look, we did it. We did it. I wish you guys had seen, I think Amber was here when I did my first Zoom. It was, I felt like I was in a comedy show. Okay, so that's my hope, that ultimately you'll be able to kind of create your own personal sleep strategy. Just want to give you a sense of how each class is going to flow, because sometimes people get a little bit alarmed by it when all of a sudden we're jumping from one thing to another. Each class that we start with, the sleep class, is going to start with some sort of educational component. I'll teach you tips for sleeping well, what different sleep disorders are. We'll learn a little bit about the circadian rhythm. We're going to be learning different things about sleep. Once I figure out how to do breakout rooms, you guys will be breaking out and sharing and talking with each other, or else we'll be doing it in a full group or on the chat. Every class will do some sort of physical movement, not much, anything you'll be able to do in your chair, so not to worry, no big crazy yoga moves. Every class will be doing some sort of breathing technique, and then every class will be doing some sort of long guided relaxation. So that's how every class will go, just so that you can just come to learn and know and expect how this is all going to flow. Okay, so I just wanted to share a little bit of sleep in the time of COVID. So just diving in now, it's normally, without quarantine, without a global pandemic, between 50 and 70 million Americans suffer with sleep disorders, which is just an absolute astounding amount of people. But since all of this has happened, even people who never had trouble sleeping before, I'm just being bombarded. It's just been an astronomical amount of people who are being, just hit with this. So much of it is that we've just had this decreased exposure to sunlight, our mobility, and when I say mobility, I mean even just basic, like parking the car and walking from the parking lot over to your classroom. Like, that's calories, that's movement, that's just mobility. You don't even think of it as exercise, just moving around. That's not happening, sort of being stuck inside. Also had so much less community support. Just even, again, being at a coffee shop, seeing humans, bonding over something, letting somebody else into a parking space, or just basic human interaction, not seeing our usual groups of friends that we would normally see, the groups of people, and things that get exchanged, even if it's not verbally, that we just normally get with groups of people. Absolutely decreased exercise. Even if you've tried to do some sort of thing at home, most people who are going to the gyms, didn't even substitute something else out. You know, they just kind of said, oh, I'll just wait till it opens back up. Basic nutrition and hydration, a lot of us have really just let those habits like, oh, we're in a crisis, so I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and, you know, eating sugar and caffeine and just all of this kind of stuff, not kind of taking as much care of ourselves because of the stress we're under. It's not like this makes us bad people. This is just what we've needed to do to cope. We've also had much less access to the other things that would normally be our stress relief. So, you know, if you're into basket weaving or archery, or you're used to going on bike rides or going to parties, or, you know, whatever your hobby is. You know, my dad is an ocean water swimmer and hasn't been doing that. It's, you know, it just, our whole routines have been upset. We've had more, of course, exposure to these blue lights on our computer screens, which we have now, much more isolation, again, medicating with like sugar, caffeine, a lot of people with alcohol, and just absolute anxiety and uncertainty, and many of us real loss. It's, you know, it's just been, it's been an incredibly challenging time. I feel like there's some more people trying to get in. Okay. So brings us to the big question: what is sleep? Which is a very difficult question to answer, and really 90% of sleep we really just still don't know, even in 2020. But we do know that it is something that we spend a third of our lives doing, hopefully. For those of us that can, we, you know, hopefully spend 8 hours a night sleeping. It's a sort of a state of unconsciousness. It's a state of healing that happens to almost all living beings. Almost all beings sleep, and it is still really a mystery to so many of us. But we do know that it is something that is absolutely universal. And I just also invite you to, in these times that are very divided, with a lot of conflict and unrest, one of the few things that really do unite us is all beings everywhere sleep. All beings everywhere inherently know that there is a moment to pause and to rest and recover. And more we're discovering the reasons why beings sleep. So that's a lot of mystery to be uncovered. One of the, there's kind of two main functions that happen with sleep. And one of them is, and just thank you for your patience with me, this sort of next maybe 4 to 5 minutes is a little thick with information, but I do feel like it's sort of my duty to share it with you a little bit, and then we'll dive into more of the fun stuff. So I just found this, the more I learn about sleep, the more I'm fascinated by it. There's kind of two regulatory systems in our body that operate as our sleep system. And one of them is what's called sleep-wake homeostasis. Essentially, sleep homeostasis is the biochemical system that essentially creates our sleep drive, or our need to sleep. So from the moment you're awake, this starts to build up. Our need for sleep starts to build. And it basically builds up through this chemical called adenosine, and adenosine builds up throughout the day. And by the time the day is over and the night is time, it builds up the sleep drive, and we fall asleep. And as we're sleeping, the adenosine dissipates. And then in the morning we wake up, and then it just starts to build again. And so that sort of happens every single day. Now, if the sleep homeostasis were the only thing that we're creating our sleep drive, we would be most awake in the morning and most tired at night. But there is another very important system that drives our sleep cycle, which most of us are familiar with, called the circadian rhythm. And I'm going to dive into that in a second. But the circadian rhythm is essentially our biological clock, a 24-hour clock. And the circadian rhythm, as I'm sure we've all experienced, is we actually aren't always our most awake in the morning and then sleepy at night. Actually, it doesn't really work that way, right? Like we do have that sleep drive, but our circadian rhythm, sometimes we're very groggy in the morning, and then very often we get we're awake for several hours, and then in the afternoons after lunch, during a siesta time, we have a drop where we start to get sleepy between like, maybe 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like this. So sleep-wake homeostasis is the adenosine, and it basically just builds throughout the day and builds up our sleep drive at night. Our circadian rhythm, means around a day. It's Latin, and most of us have a close to 24-hour, essentially a cycle. So this 24-hour cycle, this is sort of operated by this sort of long-word suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, and it's the body's master clock, and it basically tells us when to sleep, when to wake, and is also kind of miraculously adaptable to environmental and external forces like light and temperature. And it's a circadian rhythm that allows us to adjust our clock. If we travel, that's when we experience jet lag. That's all sort of due to the circadian rhythm. It's also important to know that the circadian rhythm is different for everybody. There are some people who are sort of wired to be fall asleep late at night and sleep late in the morning. Some people, are wired to 10 o'clock, they're fast asleep, and they're the early birds, they're up at 6. So we've got this kind of night owl and early lark mentality that are often very wired into our the very fiber of our being. A lot of times sleep disorders can happen when we attempt to be something we're not. So a lot of us who are naturally night owls, if we were told, hey, successful people are wake early in the morning, if I don't fall asleep till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not doing so great if I force myself up at 5 or 6 in the morning, right? I'm one of those people, I really need 8 hours of sleep. So for so long, I really sort of forced myself to go to sleep early. Like, if I go to sleep at, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, well, that's what good, successful people do. Well, I would try to force myself to do that, and I just couldn't fall asleep that early. Then I thought I was a bad person. And I get anxiety that I wasn't falling asleep. And then I'd have anxiety, and then I would be up even later than 12 or 1 because I knew I wasn't sleeping, and then I was getting into, oh my God, then I'm not going to be sleep deprived tomorrow, and then, then I have a wave of anxiety about not sleeping, and then the anxiety is stopping me from sleeping, etc. So these handouts that the slide presentation that I have up here for you guys, I am going to be sending this out to you, so you'll be able to read it through at your leisure, and kind of always feel free to email me questions. But the main point I love to make with circadian rhythm is that yes, there is stuff that we can do to adapt and to adjust our kind of natural clock, but some of us are just wired to be certain ways. So like I said, it's important to come up with your own personal sleep strategy. So one of those things might be you finding out what you have a natural propensity to, and finding ways that you can set your schedule up to be able to honor your own rhythm. Tiny bit on the brain chemistry of sleep, and then I'm going to move past it. Most of this is all stuff that you guys can be looking up if it's interesting to you. Chemicals that kind of contribute to sleep drive is GABA. This is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. This is responsible for shutting off our wakefulness part of the brain. Adenosine, I already talked about, is sort of builds up throughout the day. This creates our sleep drive. Nitric oxide, it's a gaseous molecule that helps to promote the adenosine. And of course, most of us have heard of melatonin. that's produced by the pineal gland, and that's responsible for the circadian rhythm and body clock. And so many people ask me about melatonin supplements. I don't feel like I'm in a position to be able to recommend or dissuade. I would say please check in with a physician about that. And I encourage you to, again, sort of start to really like get a book, dedicate it to your sleep strategy, and start to make notes. One night I tried melatonin, it really helped me sleep. One night I tried melatonin, it didn't help me sleep at all. It works for some people, doesn't work for others. Wakefulness, epinephrine, norepinephrine. Most of us are kind of familiar with these are the fight or flight response. These are stress hormones. Again, cortisol, also stress hormone that are basically created in our body to help us to react to life-threatening situations that, of course, then leave us in a wakeful, agitated state. The problem is we have so many stressors throughout the day. These hormones are being released and keeping us awake, even when we don't want them to. Even if it's a stressful situation at work, we have a hard time shutting all of these down. So again, just a little bit of a taste. Obviously, full courses have been taught on brain chemistry as sleep, but we're just gonna kind of move it along here. This is going to be your homework, and when I say homework, I say that loosely. I was really resistant to keeping a sleep log, I'd say, for maybe the first 20 years of my sleep challenges. The benefit of keeping a sleep log, I'd say it's your #1 tool for creating a personal sleep strategy. When you keep a sleep log and you sort of, and again, you're just going to estimate this. So you would keep a sleep log for the night that you just had. So you write down what time you got into bed, and the next morning you're like, you can estimate your sleep time. Like, oh, you know, I know it took me 45 minutes to fall asleep. And you want to write down how many times you woke up throughout the night. And then write down a little bit for that previous day, how much caffeine you took in, and did you have sort of exposure to exercise or sunlight? Make any notes there. I find these sleep logs to be super helpful. Like I actually found it took me over a period of a year to look back, and I noticed, for instance, and this won't apply to men obviously, but for me, I noticed my sleep was very connected to my monthly cycle. So even though when I noticed that, oh, that didn't actually, it didn't change it, but then at least every time I had trouble sleeping around my monthly cycle, I at least knew what was happening. So then I didn't have anxiety about it. At least I had that knowledge was power. I know, for instance, if I keep a sleep log, I write down the exercise. If I go 3 days without having any exercise, specifically without doing yoga, I'll get like restless leg syndrome, which we'll go over, I think, next week. So I actually have to do yoga. I don't do it just because I love it. I do yoga because if I don't do yoga, I'm basically doing it in my sleep. I do it so that I can sleep. So these are all things I uncovered by keeping a sleep log. And because you need to develop your own personal sleep strategy, I encourage you to keep this for yourself so you can start to uncover what affects you, what doesn't affect you. Some people, they need their room to be perfectly dark. For me, I can fall asleep in a perfectly light room. So everyone's going to be really unique. Again, I will send this to you, and you're going to be able to print it out or find your own or something like this. So there we go. Okay, great. So what I'd love to do now is I want to, oh wait, somebody's in the waiting room. Okay, great, got her. What I'd love to do now is I want us to dive into the practices, because to me, a lot of this information, you can Google it, you can find it, you can read books on it. But what I would love to do is do a little practice with all of you. And then if you have questions, I'm going to have you email me. And again, I'm going to send this all to you so we can kind of continue the discussion. Okay, let me take a little quick look at this. Our chat is, our chat's going crazy. Look at our chat. Wow, wonderful. Yes, share the slides. Okay. Mute everyone. Right. Okay. Should have done it at the beginning. Okay. Oh, my books. Yes. Okay. Yes. Great, great, great. Yes. Somebody just talking about being in a relationship with somebody who has a different sleep rhythm. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge. So just being able to talk about that, know that that's a challenge, and being able to honor each person's rhythm. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, the melatonin. Right. Okay. Wow, you guys, you are a lively group. Wonderful. Okay, great. So I'm going to jump into some of these practices because I think they're really helpful. You guys game? Okay, great. So again, if you can keep your camera on just for the next little bit. Okay, so I'm going to start with what I hope is just easy stuff, and this should be movements. If you can, just sit in a chair, but just sit a little bit like up and away from the back of the chair. And I promise you're going to get to relax. We're going to do a lot of relaxation. So if you're tired and you're cranky, I don't want to sit up away from the chair, just give me 5-10 minutes on it, okay? Because I think that tension gets locked in our body, and especially when we can't sleep, and when we're tired, we then get stuck in a cycle, then we don't wanna move, and then the tension stays there, and then we can't sleep. So it's important for us we wanna kind of break that cycle, okay? So just a little bit, shoulders up, back, and around. Up, back, and around. Now I do this shoulder circle. I do it like this, I'd say at least 5 times a day. And there's still the other direction. So I sit at the computer all day long, just like you guys, and I'm just doing this with my shoulders all the time. Okay, anyone can do this. I taught this to my grandmother passed at 101 and a half. I had her do this. Everyone can, yeah, there you go. Figure if she can do it, you guys can do it. Great. Interlace your fingers, turn them inside out, and just take your arms up. And just a couple of breaths here. It's important to remember that you don't need to do big, impressive exercise or anything fancy. If you feel like, oh, I'll just wait until I can do it perfectly. Just a little bit of movement is better than none at all. Okay, and then release. Great. And now I'm going to do a neck roll. So I drop my head down, take it to the right and around, but be real gentle with the neck. So I encourage you to set your timer for once an hour. And then just neck roll the other direction. Set your timer for once an hour. And every hour, spend just 1 minute doing one of these simple movements. You'll find that when you get to the end of the day, you'll feel so different. Okay, and then release. And then wherever you're sitting, it's going to have you just kind of do like a little side lean. It doesn't really matter what it looks like here. So throughout the day, just like our sleep drive builds up, tension builds up throughout the day. Every time somebody sends an email that we don't like, or something happens, or we forget something, we stress out, that tension builds up throughout the day. Go ahead and come on up and we'll get the other side.
Yeah, I like that you shared about doing the timer, because that's something that Ariana Huffington was just talking about, those check-in to recenter. And
yeah, beautiful. Exactly. It builds up throughout the day. You don't want to wait to the end of the day to try to relax. Like, you want to do it a little bit throughout the day. Okay, and then come on up. Great. And then we're going to just gently twist to the side. Just a little twist. And I'm just kind of like grabbing onto whatever I can get a hold of. So just however. And then go ahead and twist on the other side. Okay, great. And then release. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to teach you guys, I'm going to just take a little sip of water here. So, quick show of hands, who here is familiar with, in yoga, we have something called Ujjayi breathing. Give me a show of hands if you know what Ujjayi breathing is. Okay, great. Okay, at least some of you. I'd say about a third. Okay, wonderful. So Ujjayi breathing is a breathing practice that we do in yoga, where you're breathing, your mouth is closed, you're breathing in and out through your nose. But instead of making a sort of a sniffing sound, the sound is, you almost move the sound to the back of your throat. So it sounds sort of like this. And it's a little challenging to describe because my mouth is still closed. I'm still breathing in and out through my nose. So it's done by almost creating like a little bit of a constriction in the back of the throat. But rather than me giving you an anatomy lesson of how that works, because I don't find that's helpful at all, I'll just sort of share with you that Ujjayi breathing is actually something that all of us do every night when we fall asleep. So if you can just for a moment, I'm just going to kind of act this out in sort of a silly way. If you have trouble sleeping, very often you've watched someone, your partner, your roommate or whoever, fall asleep, or you watch a child fall asleep. And just imagine this. So when someone starts to fall asleep, right, they're here, they're falling asleep, and their breathing is a certain way, right? And the breathing kind of, they first settle to sleep, and the breathing sort of sounds like this. And then there's a moment where their breathing almost stops. The body will shift, it'll settle, and then the breathing will sound different, right? Okay, so just watch me. It sort of goes something like this. So it goes like this. So they're breathing normal. Right? Can you guys kind of picture that? Like it's all of a sudden it just sort of like, whoa, what did they do? Well, I don't know. I guess they're falling asleep. Their breathing just kind of changed. And it's just a natural, it's a natural thing that happens to actually all of us. So we actually all are doing Ujjayi breathing when we sleep. And the great news is the brain associates that sound with, hey, it's time to sleep. It's sleeping time because we hear that sound. So what I found is just simply by teaching the Ujjayi breathing to people, that very often people can use it as a technique if you're having trouble sleeping. You do the Ujjayi breathing and it can almost trick the brain, right? Like, oh, that's the sound we do when we're sleeping. I guess it must be time to sleep and fall into sleep, right?
Yeah, I'm still confused on this. So if you can kind of model again, and it's more so for me, and it was a question I was going to ask. In terms of breathing, I know like ideally you should breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. That is a very uncomfortable rhythm for me. Like I breathe in through my mouth and out through my nose. And like even earlier, I was in a meditation class earlier today, and I was thinking about, you know, the way, when I think about breathing, I think in terms of water. And so I was kind of making a comparison to the way the now goes in the opposite direction. And so that's kind of the way like my breathing goes up as opposed to down. Do you have any insight on that, or can you make sense of that in any way?
Sure, yeah, it's actually a lot to dive into, but what I'll suggest is that for this practice, your mouth is closed the whole time and you're breathing through your nose only. And ultimately, when you're sleeping, and actually most of the time, there's a saying, sort of an Indian saying, which is yoga saying, which is the nose is for breathing and the mouth is for eating and kissing. So you're actually almost never supposed to breathe through your mouth. Sometimes people do a big deep breath in through the nose and a clearing breath out through the mouth, but that's not supposed to, you're not supposed to continue that. So basically, nose breathing if you can. So I'm going to just for right now, because in the interest of time, I'm going to dive into this breathing. So we'll have us all do it, and then I can help you individually later. If you like, we can talk about that more. And then I want to make sure that we have time for the relaxation, because I think that's the best part. I don't want to shortchange us on that. So yeah, trauma informed sometimes with mouth breathing. Yeah. I'm gonna stick with this for right now, okay? So the breathing when we sleep is mouth closed through the nose and not sniffing, but a hollow sound. So the way I'd like you all to practice it is to just drop your hands now, come away from the chat, sit up nice and tall, allow your mouth to close, and allow your eyes to close. Oh, if you can't do it, if you have congestion, oh yeah, then just breathe the best you can. Please close your eyes now. So whether you're able to do this breathing or not, I'm going to invite you to just breathe smoothly and evenly. I find the best way to learn this breath is for you to simply listen to the sound of my breathing and try to match your sound to my sound. Continue breathing. Just the way a child learns how to walk, right? We don't get instructions. A child doesn't talk about walking. They don't look it up. They don't look for instructions. They just see people walking and they mirror it. Just listen to the sound of the breath and try to make the sound match your sound to my sound. This is the sound you make when you sleep. Listen to it and follow the sound. Continue making the sound on your own. Okay. And then allow your eyes to open. Great. So that'll be one of the tips as you're creating your own personal sleep strategy, is to make the sound of sleep. I also encourage you, if you get stressed out throughout the day, or if you just have like a 2-minute break between Zoom meetings and you're just feeling kind of tweaked, rather than checking your social media and looking around, just pause, close your eyes, and just try to listen to the sound of your breath. Okay, so we're going to move now on to the relaxation part of the class, which may be the most important part. So for this part, we're gonna do a guided relaxation. And unlike some of the mindfulness practices you may be familiar with, for this one, I'm gonna encourage you to go and lie down. So if you want to turn your camera off, if you want to bring me with you, but I'm gonna encourage you to get up off your chair and lie down on the floor, lie down on a bed, lie down on the sofa. You want to get into a comfortable position.
I could text you when
Please find your way into a comfortable position. And if you don't have a good place to lie down, a chair is just fine. You may want to turn off the lights. You may want to cover your eyes. Just make sure you can hear me, but you don't need to see me. Now, if you know you have trouble focusing, if you know you have trouble lying still and relaxing, please just know you're not alone. And many of us actually have to practice and get good at relaxing. So in this very first one, you may not feel very relaxed at first, but just like learning an instrument or learning how to do anything well, learning how to relax on command, it's something really worth getting good at. It's a skill that you're going to want to have for the rest of your life. So if you feel like you're a beginner at it now, like you're not good, you're just not good at relaxing, well, neither was I. And then I practiced it again and again, and every time I got a little bit better. So this first relaxation is going to be very short, it's less than 10 minutes long. Find a comfortable position with your body. Move your feet around, move your hands around, move your face muscles and your jaw around. And then allow all of those things to come to a place of stillness. And we will, per our discussion a moment ago, take just one in through the nose and out through the mouth. So let's do it together, just one. Deep breath in through the nose. In. In, hold your breath, please, hold it. Hold your breath. Out through the mouth. Let it release. And then please close your mouth now. The mouth is now closed. And begin to watch the breath move in and out through the nostrils. And with your eyes closed, bring your attention to the muscles behind your eyes. Feel the back of the eyes softening. Bring your attention to the inside of your mouth. Relaxing the inside of your mouth. Softening teeth and gums. Be aware of your ears. Feel the shape of your ears. Be aware of the ears, hearing. Continue to watch the flow of the breath in and out through the nose. And become aware of the shape that your body is making now. With your mind, trace the entire shape of you. And notice that that shape rises up and expands on the inhale, and the shape of you softens and relaxes on the exhale. Repeat to yourself, rise, relax, rise and relax. Rise, relax. I'm going to encourage you all to just stay here in a relaxed space where I'm going to be turning off the meeting and you can just stay here and relax. Thank you so much for it's all the fun questions and dialogue this evening. I'm going to be sending you an email with all of these slides as a follow-up. I appreciate all of your contributions tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.